All right, we are live on Facebook tonight talking about choosing your first guitar. My name is Kurt with Music and Arts. Joining me tonight is Alan Day, amazing guitar player, longtime guitar teacher, somebody who I consider an expert in the industry at all things guitars. And we're here to talk about choosing your first guitar. It could be acoustic, could be electric, and some of the important things surrounding guitar teaching. And so I want to dive into that a little bit. Alan, thanks for taking some talk with us.
My pleasure.
Hey, so I'm curious to know, you've taught a lot of students over the year. What's the very first thing that you ask a guitar student? They walk into their lesson or online, very first thing, what is it that you ask them?
Well, first I want to make sure that they have an instrument that's sized proportionately to them. So it fits their body, can be more comfortable to hold and to play. As far as asking them a question, the first one would be that I ask them, what kind of music do you like? What kind of music do you see yourself playing on guitar? And that's critical, because if they hear electric guitar in their head and they want to be a rock and roller, you don't want to get them a nylon string guitar. You want to get them an electric guitar and have them start on that. Therefore, they'll hear that more, and it'll help in their lessons.
Do you find that students have a kind of a particular perception to what they hear in terms of a guitar? You say, what does a guitar sound like? And they hear a specific style of music?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what determines their ambition and what they want to learn. So if they're listen to country or bluegrass and they like the sound of acoustic guitar, even through rock or any other kind of music, then acoustic is what they should have and try that. But electric is a different animal altogether. It's has a different sound, different feel.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about just kind of your first electric guitar and some of the things that parents should be looking for. I got to imagine there's a pretty wide range of kind of inexpensive to really expensive and different features and different things to look for, and some things that are really important, some things not so important. Talk to me a little bit about what you consider to be important when it comes to your first electric guitar.
Absolutely, playability is the first thing. So if the guitar is set up right and there's proper distance here between the nut and the first fret, as well as at the bridge point, then the guitar is going to play smooth. It's going to be easy to press down the notes. It's not going to be as frustrating for the student, whether it's a young child or whether it's an adult. That's the first thing. You got to make sure that the instrument is really playable for them, and that just makes everything go smoother.
When you say that the setup of the guitar, is there more to it than just the string, intonation height?
Well, yeah, it's a point from where at the nut here. It's a point at the bridge, and it's also the curvature of the neck. So these are things that all the acoustics and electrics are the same thing. There's a truss rod that goes through the neck that adjusts the neck, so you can have it bowed either way, so that the action will be reflected on that. So the lower the action you can get it without fret buzz, then they'll play easier. And again, it's just so much better for a student to try to learn on an instrument that is just easy to play, because it's very frustrating.
I have to imagine this is one of those things where just a very small difference in the string height of a guitar is a huge difference to a beginning student.
Absolutely. And they don't know quite what they're to expect or what they're going to feel. So the more it's easy to play, it'll be conducive to them wanting to practice and to learn, and they won't be so frustrated with making the first sound, because pressing that note down on the fret, learning how to fret a note, is really critical. That's why taking lessons from an instructor, whether it's online or whether it's in person, they will give you the feedback as to where your fingers place. Are you placed in the right place? Are you putting enough pressure down? So when you make a chord, you hear all the notes ring on the chord. If there's something's blocked out like that, then you can see what they're doing, and that's the value of having an instructor that.
Yes, interesting. I mean, in these times, a lot of the instruction's going on virtually. You know, music and arts, we're doing a lot of lessons that way. You know, over 2,000 a day. I'm curious from your perspective as a guitar teacher, you can really accomplish most of the things you need to do with a student in that virtual setting, can't you?
Absolutely. It's because you are interactive. You can hear, you can see what the person is doing. You can tell them what they need to do to make it sound better and to solve the issues they may or may not be having with that.
Yeah, what are some of the things you think that make for a successful online lesson for a beginning student? What would be the things that you'd be looking for as a teacher to help really get that student off on the right foot?
Well, again, I'd want to know what kind of music they want to play, and then get them working on getting their fingers used to pressing down the frets. That's the biggest issue I think that beginning guitar students have, is how much pressure do I put down? And my experience has been they always tend to want to learn so much faster than they really have the ability most of the time. Sometimes they're like pretty quick. So having that set the guitar set up so that they can, and with the instructor, learn how to put that pressure down on there. So when you play a chord, when you play single notes, it just rings, and then they like that. And it's a nice circle there.
That real instant feedback, especially with an acoustic guitar, I'm sure.
And you won't get that from just a static video watching it. So,
Yeah, nobody can tell if you're kind of trying to learn from YouTube or something that, okay,
no,
you're playing the right shape, but you're missing some of these notes here.
exactly. And that is such a benefit.
Yeah, I'd imagine. So what else would a beginning student need for, we're talking electric guitars, since you've got a beautiful one there. What else would a beginning student need to be successful for lessons?
Well, with the guitar, with electric, you're going to need some accessories with that. You're going to need an amplifier. You're going to need a cable to connect your instrument to your amplifier. Obviously, a strap, and as you go along, possibly capos, but that's down the road. Picks is critical. And then when you get all these things together, then the instructor can show you how to use the pick, and then how to set your amp up, and how to do the interconnect between the guitar and the amplifier. Because amps,
That can be done virtually too. You don't have to be in the room with this.
no, not at all. You could
Bring their amp to a lesson in a store anyway, could they? So you're able to kind of help diagnose what their sound should sound like.
right. They can see it right there, and then tell you what you should set the dials at, and to get the kind of sound that they want. And I think it's the next best thing to being there.
Yeah, pretty exciting. What about for an acoustic guitar? What are some of the things that a beginning student should look for in an acoustic guitar? Because again, I think I was looking online, you can buy $30 acoustic guitars and $30,000 acoustic guitars, but from 30 feet, they all kind of look the same, don't they? So what are the things that a beginning student should look for?
Well, you don't want to buy the cheapest guitar, and you want to find a reputable brand. I have always believed in buying a new instrument because you get a warranty with it, and it's probably set up properly from the factory. But with an acoustic guitar, it's the same as with an electric as far as the setup. If the neck is set up correctly, it's gonna play better. So the strings on an acoustic are thicker, so they're a little bit harder to press down. There's different gauges you can get on an acoustic, going from light gauge to medium and everything in between. But with an acoustic, it's the same principles as with an electric, only minus the amp and the effects.
I've always wondered which is easier for a student to begin on an electric guitar or an acoustic guitar.
Well, I've always thought it's easier on electric because the action is lower, the strings are lighter tension, so it's easier to play. But if that's not the style of music, if you don't hear that, if that's not something you want to do, then an acoustic guitar is probably the best choice. And with that, you can
The amplifier and cable.
yeah, if it's an acoustic electric, they have pickups in there, and you can plug it in, and you can go through an amp with some effects on there, and it sounds great, and it's a lot of fun. And it's portable, and it doesn't really need an amplifier because it amplifies itself, you know.
So makes complete sense. So we've been talking a little bit about kind of beginning acoustic guitars, beginning electric guitars, what kind of your first student session would be like, basic fretting of the notes, talk about sound and style. Let's talk about maybe you've been teaching a student for maybe 3, 4, 5 lessons now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're teaching online, they're kind of getting their fingers used to things, they're getting used to playing. What are some of the things now that you start working with those students on developing more technique with?
Well, I start all mine with finger exercises that go across the neck, and it's different combinations. So it'd be 1 2 1 2 1 3 1 4 2 3. So you get your fingers working independently from one another. So it's a combination of doing exercises like that with basic open chords, and then tying all that together with the chords, with learning some easy songs that they recognize and would like to play. That keeps them motivated. So when they're playing something that they like and they can see where they're going, I think that's when you got a good student there. So,
Can play almost any song, right, with four basic chords. Isn't that the theory?
I don't know if I believe that, but sort of.
There are a lot of songs you can play with 4 chords, that's for sure. What difference would you approach with a student playing acoustic guitar versus electric guitar as they're starting to advance a little bit beyond the first couple lessons?
I would say it's going to be a lot of the same setup as far as your exercises, but learning strumming patterns, and probably focusing more on strumming patterns and arpeggio picking with an acoustic guitar, so that you can again have them hear that sound that they want to play, and they hear in their head. If you don't hear it, you're not going to play it, and that's the basic key with everything for me.
I've got to imagine with a guitar student, you probably within the first 2 or 3 lessons can have them playing a basic song with basic chords that they can play for their parents, their friends, and start to see some success. Do you think so?
Oh yes, but it takes practice. They have to put the time into it, and that's the repertoire that the teacher and the student have to get worked out so that they can make sure that happens. But yes, it can come quick if you practice.
Yeah. What advice would you have for that student who maybe just started taking lessons? You're really inspired about it. What amount of time per day is realistic to put into guitar?
I would suggest, I always had suggested a minimum of 30 minutes a day. I don't think 15 minutes is enough. If you structure that 30 minutes or more, then you can start with your exercises, finish with your chords, or your exercises, your finger exercises, your chords, and then go into your songs. So you can have that kind of an order. So you can warm your hand up, you get your chords down, and then you play them in succession to make the song. So there's an order in which they hear that, they see that, and they learn that. So that's what I would do.
That makes a lot of sense, especially as you're starting to develop that muscle strength in your fingers. It would be hard to spend multiple hours practicing. I'm sure. I've always wondered, if you have your instrument out kind of around your space. Let's say for students, they're doing schoolwork from home. You've got your guitar on your bed. You've got 10 minutes free between what you're working on. Let me pick it up. Let me practice a little bit. Is kind of regular practice throughout the day also pretty useful?
I think anytime they can pick up a guitar and play it and get it in their hands, that's a step forward. There should be practice time that's sincere with learning the pressure points and doing the exercises. And then there should be fun playing. And that will merge, because as you get better, it becomes a lot more fun. And it's just a great thing when you see them really kind of light up, and all of a sudden they can play some songs. And
Yeah, and it's something that can stick with you forever. You can play guitar no matter how old you are. So we've talked a bunch about beginning guitars, and I want to talk a little bit more about, a little bit nicer guitars, because it's one of those things where as you grow and you expand, just like any other musical instrument, you can get better products that will grow and expand with you. What are some of the things in an electric guitar that maybe you've been playing for a year, you're ready, you're having some great success, ready for kind of the next step up in a guitar? What would be some things you'd look for in an instrument?
well, there are brands that have various levels. So if you go with the Fender family of guitars, you can start with Squire, and then it goes into the Fender line. They look very similar. They play sort of similar, but as you get more refined in the appointments, better better neck feel, better fretting, better pickups in it, then you start seeing where the value is on that as you get a better instrument. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a good guitar these days. They're making some fine instruments that someone could buy to start with, and wouldn't have to buy multiple guitars. But let's be realistic, they are guitar players and they will buy multiple guitars. So
Yeah, I can tell by your studio there. That looks like a small sampling of all the guitars you own,
no, I don't. Yeah.
and have owned over the years, no doubt. What are some of the other things as somebody gets, kind of really into playing guitar? It becomes, your hobby. Then it becomes a serious hobby. There are also pedals that you can get into, right?
Yep, that's one of my favorites. There are just a plethora of pedals out there. So you have so many choices between overdrive pedals, modulation pedals. Um, so your overdrives, your distortions, your choruses, your delays, reverb pedals. A lot of them are combined, but there's so many ones to choose from that there's some basic ones that I would just always suggest that you can't go wrong with.
And for parents out there, again, watching this, thinking about their student who's kind of just getting into this is a way that you can kind of shape your sound and get closer to some of the sounds that your student hears on the records, right? That's the purpose of these pedals.
Purpose of it, exactly. So the overdrive pedals and distortion pedals, some will have a clearer sound to it with the distortion, and some will be a heavier distortion. Again, depending on what kind of music you listen to, what do you like, that is where you would kind of go down that road. But they all kind of like will do some things that cross over, so it doesn't have to be specifically one thing. It could be several different choices out there, and they're going to buy more than one pedal too, believe me.
No doubt, more than one pedal. So kind of coming back full circle to students and studying online. I'd imagine as the student is advancing, they're getting a little bit more maybe genre specific. The pedals in an online lesson environment can really help the teacher kind of fine tune what the student is wanting to play and sound like, I'd imagine.
Yes, that'll help give them the tonal palette so that they, as they play, they'll hear, and they, again, the closer they get to what they hear and want to play, that it's just great when they light up and they can finally hit that note and that chord and make it all come together.
There's a real aha moment, no doubt. I'm sure.
Yeah, it usually happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also curious to know, kind of thinking again from the online lesson perspective. Talk to me about the environment for the student, or the setup of how they're sitting with the guitar, and kind of what type of chair, how they're holding it. That has to play a little bit of a factor, their environment, into how successful they are.
Absolutely. They have to have good posture when they're sitting. They need to have a music stand. So the music that they're given, they're not sitting on the bed looking down like this, because you need to be really focused on what you're looking at. So I would say they have to have a good chair that's going to give them back support, a music stand. I like having a light, certainly on mine, and a tuner. They got to have a tuner. Got to keep the guitar in tune. Some acoustic guitars have tuners built in. If not, then there are these little clip-on ones like this that I think this is the Dario.
Yeah, very handy, so that it's right there on the guitar, and you play the string and you can adjust.
Yeah, you put it on your headstock here and just turn it on. You'll just hit a note and it'll tell you whether you're sharp or flat.
It's got to be good practice for the students also, hearing the pitch of the strings and hearing as it's in tune and out of tune.
Absolutely.
And that sound is like.
That's it. They need to hear the guitar in tune all the time, because then they get used to hearing that pitch, and that's how they get trained for the knowing when something doesn't sound right, or they can use their tuner to get started with, and then to just do checks, while they're playing. But they'll know after a while when the guitar sounds like it's out of tune.
Yeah, and so probably really important to develop that skill of not only being able to tune your guitar, but then knowing when it's out of tune, because the strings stretch, they go out of tune a little bit, and you need to make adjustments. No string will be perfectly in tune all the time.
I wish it would, but they don't.
Yeah, nobody's invented that yet. I'm sure somebody might.
Probably will.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about beginning guitars, a little bit about advanced guitars. I'm curious for your opinions on students that have been playing for a little while, and they're really serious, and they're really going to buy a really nice guitar. And talk to me a little bit about where some of those are made, what some of the the finish options and pickup options will be like. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. So this is a made in Maryland guitar here. This is made by Paul Reed Smith. This would be more at your upper end of guitars. It's very well made. It's a set neck. It's not a bolt-on. So it's a glued neck, which costs usually more to do that. Custom wound pickups. They do a great job with their guitars, and
the finishes on the nicer guitars are also, they put a lot more time into the.
They're more translucent, and they're a lot of times nitro cellulose lacquer on some it's a poly finish or a combination thereof. Fender has this is a Fender Stratocaster. They're probably one of the most popular guitars out there, and a good choice for someone just starting because of the sounds. With 3 pickups on there, you have 5 different combinations, so you can do a lot of different things with this type of instrument. And these, again, this is a little more expensive model. This is the Eric Johnson Strat. It is a bolt-on.
That body style is kind of the traditional Fender style, right? A lot of students will see professionals and artists playing that type of guitar, the traditional Fender style, right?
Yeah, it hasn't changed a whole lot since 1954. So,
Yeah, the headstock and the body style I got
new style, pretty innovative for back then, huh?
right there. What's the difference? So mine, I said I wasn't going to
Got
play.
one too.
What's that? There
Got one too.
we go. But this one has the neck is the darker color, the rose,
Those were-
and yours is the maple neck. What's the difference?
Um, it's a difference in feel. Rosewood has a different feel to me than maple, and that's where you get the back of the neck on Fenders are almost always maple, but it's the fingerboard that is either rosewood, maple, or Palfaro, which is the type of dark
What
rosewood.
what are the bodies of most electric guitars made out of?
Um, Depending on what company makes them, it could be ash, it could be alder. With PRS, it's mahogany. And with a curly maple top on this, this is, I think, ash on this one.
So there's really a wide variety of wood materials
Yes.
as you get more advanced. And I'd imagine the same thing for acoustic guitars, right? You can have spruce and rosewood and all sorts of materials.
And those woods on an acoustic really do make a difference. The a Sitka spruce top, which is a lighter color, will have a brighter and more snap to it than a cedar top, which is used mostly on classicals, but you see it on a lot of acoustic steel strings. And that is a little bit warmer sound, a little bit more mid-range. The body woods on acoustics really vary. I mean, mahogany or Ovengal are in the mahogany family. That's kind of a standard back and sides that and the neck material that they would use on acoustics.
Advanced instruments, right? As the students are getting better and better, and those materials can kind of fine tune the sound that the students are looking for from their guitar.
Yes, like this is a solid top. This is a spruce top on this. This is rosewood back and sides. It's mahogany neck, and it's got a rosewood fingerboard on it. So it's got a comfortable body on it. This one has a built-in tuner, which is most of the higher end guitars will have some kind of tuner in them, unless it's more of a traditional like a Martin. And those will.
So even most of the beginning guitars that a parent might be, looking at, again, I'm thinking of the parent watching this who's thinking about getting their student going with some guitar lessons. They've had a guitar in the family, likely even the beginning guitars have got quality materials that have some durability to it. Yes.
Yeah, these guitars that are being built today, the quality control is gotten really quite excellent. Even so, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a guitar that's playable and sounds fairly nice. As you spend more money and you have different tone woods in the guitar, then it's going to give you a different sound, and it's going to give you a deeper sound or a brighter sound. The playability will probably be a little bit different on a more expensive instrument, because the time they take to set it up and the neck straightness and the way it's joined at the body. So there's a lot of variables there, but it's not like it used to be where it was like not that good and then really good. And now there's a lot of choices in between.
Yeah, and it looks like a beautiful instrument. So again, just a couple more quick questions, Alan. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about beginning guitars with us tonight and kind of the perspective of the guitar teacher. This is certainly a different time we're living in right now, and a lot of students studying online. No reason you can't have success by taking online lessons, just like in person. You know, we actually forgot to talk about one of the most important accessories to have for a guitar student. You've got two of them there in your frame. I've got one right here. That's the guitar stand, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, yes.
So
It's,
your guitar is protected. It's not.
you have to have a good guitar stand. So invest the money in a nice guitar, invest the money in a nice guitar stand. You won't regret it.
A nice guitar case too, because sooner or later you
Absolutely.
take that guitar to a gig.
Right. Most of your higher end guitars, acoustic and electric, might have a case with it. That's been my experience. But if not, then you should invest the money into a really nicely padded gig bag or a hard shell case with it to protect it as you, even just in the house. It's just important to keep the exposure to the humidity in the house kind of equal as much as you can. You want to try to make sure your house is somewhere around 40 points to 50 points in humidity. So in the wintertime when it's dry, acoustic guitars will need a little extra love. So there are humidification packets that you can put in there and your case and keep it in the case. So, and take it out when you play, put it back, and that'll help preserve your investment.
So if you're a beginning guitar student, your guitar should be either on the stand, on your body, or in the case.
Absolutely.
To protect that. Great. So last question for you. I'd be curious to know of kind of any of your words of encouragement or advice for beginning guitar players out there. You've had a great career as a guitarist, a musician, and teacher. And I'd love to hear kind of your advice to the beginning students today about playing guitar and what that can mean for your life and career.
It is absolutely the most awesome experience you're going to have in getting connected with a musical instrument. For me, I knew at a young age what guitar meant to me, and I have been playing since I was 12. You know, that was a couple of years ago. And when you take the time and know that it takes time to put together your routine, your practice routine, your fun time in playing with it. Playing with friends is very important. So as you get better, having a community of friends to play with is what it's all about. It's the teacher relationship is critical, whether it's online or in person, but has to be an end to that. And that hopefully is playing with other musicians and making music that they write, maybe, and also that other people have written. So it's just, it's a lot of fun. Be patient, love what you're doing, and just realize that you're a guitar player.
Absolutely. Now's a great time if you've been thinking about lessons. Music and Arts offers online lessons, our great quality guitar instruction. And Alan, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah.
Pick up that guitar and go play a little bit.
Sure.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Alan.
All right.
See you soon.